There are a variety of differences between Eastern and Western cultures. Eastern cultures tend to live in a more collectivistic fashion. Western cultures tend to be more individualistic. Eastern cultures tend to treat health issues holistically, while Western cultures tend to treat health issues more accurately. Imagine this scenario. You're in a public speaking class. You've chosen a topic for your speech. You've done some research for this topic, and you've created a well-organized outline. You write your outline down on speech note cards, but when it comes to speech day, you end up reading your speech word for word, which results in poor delivery. Like I just did here, you don't want to be reading your speech word for word from your outline or from your note cards. So today, I'm going to teach you how to go from a working outline to an actual speech presentation with excellent delivery skills. Today, we're going to talk about methods of speech delivery, including verbal delivery, vocal delivery, nonverbal delivery, and presenting your material. So what I want you to do is go ahead and think of one of your favorite speakers. For example, one of my favorite speakers is Ellen DeGeneres. Who are some of your favorite speakers? Think of comedians, television hosts. Think of professors that you may have had, or maybe your church pastor. What do you like about their speech delivery? Are they enthusiastic? Do they share personal stories? Do they have good inflection and tone to their voice? Do they relate well to their audience? Why do you like them? Why are they engaging? And what is it that you like about their delivery style? What you should do is think of some of your favorite speakers and try to emulate their behavior when it comes to public speaking. A lot of people say they really like listening to Joe Rogan's podcast because he's real with his audience. He's always honest and he's always excited about whatever he's saying. One of the reasons I like Ellen so much is that she always has a very positive attitude. She even dances before she begins her shows. All right, so let's talk about some verbal and nonverbal do's and don'ts when it comes to your speech delivery. All right, so verbal delivery. One of the things you should do is be clear, concise, and avoid vague language in your speech. So when you're writing your outline, you do want your outline to be conversational, so it should sound like you're having a conversation. You can use I statements, we statements, you can use more casual language, but you want to avoid vague language or slang. So you want to avoid phrases like stuff like that, things, a lot, you guys. For example, let's say you were giving a persuasive speech about homelessness in Los Angeles. You wouldn't want to start your introduction and attention-grabbing statement with, "There are a lot of homeless in Los Angeles." Instead, be more specific with your language. Give us details. Include a source. You might want to say, according to the Los Angeles Times article of 2019, they report there are approximately 50,000 people experiencing homelessness in and around the Los Angeles area. This way, you're really going to engage your audience through those specific details. Be vivid. So maybe throughout your speech, you're going to give some examples. In the informative speech, you could give a speech about a person, place, object, event, or concept. Maybe I want to give a speech about the late and great Kobe Bryant. So in my subpoints, I want to use vivid detail. So I want to describe what he was like as a player. I might want to do this by adding metaphors or similes. For example, Kobe is often referred to as the Black Mamba because he moves like the Black Mamba snake. He slithers through players on the court and then strikes at the end of the court, getting that point for his team. All right, you can also use analogies. So this is really good for more difficult concepts. Let's say I wanted to talk about the importance of vaccinations. I could give a comparison or example to illustrate my point. So this will help explain or clarify these more complicated topics. And you can convey meaning through these analogies. For instance, Vaccines are like installing an antivirus software on your new computer or applying sunscreen before you go to the beach. It protects you from getting the virus. All right, you also want to be conversational with your language, but you don't want to use slang words. So you want to use inclusive language. In your introduction, especially when you're listing your thesis and preview, you want to use us and we statements. Today, we are going to discuss the issue of homelessness in the Los Angeles area. Next, we're going to discuss why this issue persists, and finally, we will look at some solutions to this problem. That's a great way of using the us and we language in your introduction. It lets your audience know that they are coming along on this journey with you. Sprinkle in some rhetorical questions to make sure the audience is listening. So some speakers do like to add in a question or two throughout the speech. You can wait for some response from your audience. You can even ask for a show of hands. And then try to avoid slang words and phrases. Try to avoid filler words. So filler words would be those words or little disfluencies that we tend to say without even realizing it in between our sentences. Like, so. A great way to get rid of these is to record yourself giving a speech. Practice adding pauses instead of saying or like. This can get better with a lot of practice. All right, so more effective vocal delivery. You want to think of speakers that you really enjoy the tone of their voice. So, and you also want to think of speakers that maybe you don't enjoy the tone of their voice so much. Morgan Freeman, for example, has a nice strong tone. He often is narrating videos. And then if you were a fan of the show Friends, you know Janice, for example, has a really scratchy and like high-pitched tone, which isn't pleasant to listen to. In fact, the entire group kind of cringes when she comes around. So pay attention to your pitch and tone. You also want to pay attention to your volume and projection. Now, if you're in a classroom, you want to think, how large is the classroom and how much do I need to project my voice? You should project to the back of the room, but you don't want to be yelling at your audience. If you're at home delivering this speech, then what you want to do is project loud enough so that you think your voice is being picked up by your computer and the rest of us can hear it. Try to eliminate any background noise that might block us from actually hearing the speaker. All right, pay attention to your speaking rate or pace. You don't want to speak too fast. The most common mistake students make is they do speak too fast in a speech. And so you want to slow your speech rate, take pauses, and breathe. Then continue with your speech. All right. So finally, you want to add inflection, and inflection serves as a punctuation for different parts of your speech. So you want to add enthusiasm and inflection to your voice. That way we know which words to focus on. For example, homelessness is a huge problem in Los Angeles. That is a way I can add punctuation to the words that I'm saying. All right, so more about vocal delivery. You want to use descriptive language. So if you're talking about a place or maybe an event, you want to really write your outline so that it's nice and descriptive and the audience can really imagine what you're talking about. I had a student give a speech about Dubai, which is a city in the Middle East. And so you have to really work on pronunciation and articulation when giving this description of your place. So this particular student described Dubai as the Las Vegas of the Middle East. He referred to Dubai as a breathtaking city on the Arabian Peninsula, home to the world's largest indoor shopping mall, which was 5 stories, the largest all-suite hotel commissioned and decorated by designer Giorgio Armani, and the city of Dubai even hosted a water show that was timed to music, similar to the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. So as you see, using this descriptive language can really bring your audience into that picture that you're trying to paint. All right, when it comes to effective delivery, it's okay to show emotion, especially if it matches the mood of your speech. So connect with your audience, interact with your audience. You can ask questions. You can show genuine emotion. If you're giving a eulogy, let's say, for someone, a family member who has passed, it's okay to cry a little bit. If you're really excited about something, show that excitement. Artist Cardi B expressed genuine emotion in 2019 when she was the first female ever to win a Grammy for Best Rap Album. She got up on stage, she cried, she thanked her family, she thanked her fans, and people really liked to see this side of Cardi B. All right, so now let's talk about nonverbal delivery. Much of our communication is actually nonverbal. Somewhere between 65 and 95% of all communication is nonverbal. So this includes things like our eye behavior and facial expressions. You want to incorporate eye behavior and facial expressions into your speech. How much of your speech should be memorized and how much eye contact should you make? So I do allow you to use note cards for your speech in class, but it's always suggested that you at least memorize the introduction and conclusion of your speech. Our textbook suggests that you memorize 80% of your speech and have your note cards there in case you forget what you're going to say, and that way you can reference your note cards. I would also suggest putting numbers on your note cards too, in case they get out of order or in case you drop them during a speech. Next, you want to add gestures and facial expression. Keep your gestures from the waist up. So in other words, keep your hands here and you can add gestures to maybe emphasize some of your points. You don't want to use too many gestures because it can be distracting for your audience. You also don't want to gesture wildly because that can also be distracting. Keep your gestures in this general area here. We call it the gesture box. So basically waist to chin and then from your shoulders in. That way you'll ensure that you are using your gestures properly. All right, and work to control your body movements. Sometimes we get nervous and it can be tempting to maybe touch our clothing, touch our hair or jewelry. So you want to make sure that you eliminate any distractions. So any clothing that could be distracting that you're maybe pulling on, you definitely don't want to wear that shirt that day. Or let's say a sweatshirt with pockets. You want to remove hats. We'll get into attire in just a moment. And work on controlling any like fidgeting movements, swaying back and forth, even like moving of the shoulders, or just sort of like pacing back and forth. So work on really controlling those body movements. Pause, take a deep breath, look at your audience, and then start with good posture and clear tone. All right, so when it comes to using a podium and moving around the room, when you're in a typical classroom, you can start with the podium, but it's always a good idea to come out from behind the podium and interact with your audience. Think of some of your favorite professors that you may have had at Moorpark College or at other colleges. They always come out from the podium and they probably talk to their audience members. In public speaking, we do like to use something called the speaker's triangle. So this is essentially, if you look at the image on the screen, moving in a triangle with each of your main points. So I'm going to demonstrate this for you now. As you see, I have a clicker here. If you're giving your speech from home, you might want to ask a family member to change your PowerPoint for you. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to start your introduction right in the middle of the room. You want to say your entire introduction here, and when you're ready to move on to your first main point, move to one side of the room. So I might want to move over here. If you're in a classroom, you would obviously take a few steps versus just one single step. Say your entire first main point here and all of your subpoints. Then when you're moving on to your transition, you can move to the back of the room. Say your entire second main point here. When you're moving on to your transition or third main point, move to the other side of the room. Deliver your entire third main point to this side of the room. And finally, when you're moving back to the conclusion, you can move back to the middle of the room. You can even move forward a little bit. so that the audience can see that you're moving. One of the reasons why we use the speaker's triangle is the audience members don't have access to your outline. So when you move with each of your main points, we come along with you. We understand that you're transitioning to a new subject in your speech, making your organization clear for the audience. All right, let me sit back down now. Okay, so when it comes to your personal appearance, like we said, nonverbal communication accounts for 65 to 90% of all communication, so your appearance does matter when delivering a speech. People judge you based on what they see, so you want to have appropriate speech attire. Our textbook does talk about what's appropriate attire, so you should wear a nice blouse or a work shirt, something with a collar, something that's fairly conservative to make sure that you're not distracted by your clothing and that your audience isn't also distracted by your clothing. So I would suggest business casual attire, something that you would wear maybe to a church function, to a nice dinner, or to a job interview. Here are some examples of business casual. So for women, a nice blouse and pants, or maybe a sweater and a longer skirt. For men, you could have a plain shirt. You could even wear a tie if you like, and then obviously a nice pair of pants. You don't want to wear something that's dirty or that has holes in it. And you can also dress the part. So for your informative speech, you're going to be choosing your topic. Maybe you're giving a speech about rock climbing, and so you can dress the part and actually wear your rock climbing gear. I would only suggest this if your outfit has something to do with the topic. So rock climbing is a good example here. I also had another student talk about how to prepare for fires in Southern California, and he was a firefighter, and so he showed us his fire fatigues and how he gets ready and prepared for that. Now, if you're giving a speech about an athlete like Kobe Bryant and you have a Kobe t-shirt, I wouldn't suggest wearing that for this speech unless you can somehow incorporate it into your speech. Make sure that you have a nice, clean appearance. You don't have to totally shave your face, but just make sure that you look well kept and like you showered that day and you got prepared for the day, something again that you would wear to a job interview. And finally, avoid any distracting clothing. So I do want to see your face during the speech, so make sure you remove any hats or beanies. Make sure that you're not wearing any jewelry that would sort of be loud or distracting for the audience. And even when it comes to your note cards, you probably want to use plain white note cards, nothing like bright and distracting for your audience. So here are some pictures again of what I feel is an appropriate attire. You can also dress the part. All right, so in summary, we talked about appropriate verbal delivery, nonverbal delivery, and the best thing that you can do before speech day is actually practice your speech. So practice your speech with your phone timer. Make sure you're within the time frame. Make sure that you are using your note cards and that you are adding in gestures and body movement while practicing your speech. You'd be surprised how much time moving around the room actually takes up. All right, so if you have any questions about methods of delivery, please feel free to email me. And that was our lesson on delivery.